You know, we talk a lot about worship these days. We have worship services, worship teams, worship leaders, worship programs. We talk a lot about worship, but we're seeing in Isaiah 6 in this series of devotionals how we can know if we've truly worshiped. And the first evidence that we've truly worshiped is an upward evidence. Because if we have truly worshiped, we will see God in His holiness. That's what happened to Isaiah. He said, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, Isaiah said. And he said he was high and he was lifted up. And he said the train of his robe filled the temple. And he said that angelic choir began to sing one to another, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts. There was that upward evidence. He saw God in His holiness. And when we've worshiped, we'll have the same experience. Note that he saw the Lord and he worshiped. You know, it was all about the Lord. Think about some of the worship songs we sing. So many of them are so man-centered. I was in a church not long ago, and we repeated over and over and over, I worship you, I worship. It was all about what I did. It was all about me. And if you really look at some of the worship songs we're singing today, they're far more man-centered than they are God-centered. Worship must be Christ-centered, not man-centered. You know, there's a new trendy gospel today that sort of replaces the New Testament gospel. The new trendy gospel is all about self-fulfillment. The New Testament gospel is about self-denial. Jesus said, if a man denies himself and takes up his cross and follows me. The new trendy gospel is about the need of man's happiness and to be content. The New Testament gospel tells us of our need of Christ. The upward evidence that we've worshiped is that we begin to see God in His holiness. You know, a crisis had ensued. In fact, in verse 1 of Isaiah 6, it says that in the year that King Uzziah died. Now, that's very important in this worship experience because King Uzziah had died. Judah had had 10 kings. A few of them were good kings. As you remember, the northern kingdom had no good kings. They all did evil in the sight of the Lord. But Judah had had 10 kings, and Uzziah had ruled for 52 years. Now he had died, and the earthly throne was empty. It was a dark time in the land of Judah. It was the year that King Uzziah died. A crisis had come. Often worship comes to us in times of desperate need. I know it has been in my life. I know some of my greatest worship times have emerged out of dark days in my life. In times when I really needed Him and was drawn to Him and was driven to Him. And so there's a lot to be said behind this. It was in the year that King Uzziah died. He said, I saw the Lord, Isaiah said, and He was seated on the throne. How important is that? The earthly throne was empty. King Uzziah had died. But he saw the Lord seated on a throne. God had not abdicated His throne. He was still in control. He was still in charge. His eyes still ran to and fro over the whole world to show Himself strong in behalf of those whose hearts are fixed on Him. You'll know that you've truly worshiped when, like Isaiah, you see the Lord in His own holiness. He's still seated on the throne. He has not abdicated His throne. He said, my eyes have seen the Lord. I don't know what your Uzziah is, that thing in which you've hoped, that thing in which you trusted. Maybe your Uzziah has died, but worship comes when times like that we're driven to God to realize that there's an upward evidence, and you'll know you've worshiped when you have that upward evidence, when you begin to focus on God, not yourself, and you see Him in the beauty of His holiness, seated on a throne, in complete control. He's not abdicated His throne. The upward evidence that we've worshiped is that we see God, like Isaiah, high and lifted up, and seated on his throne in the beauty of his holiness.